Hello, folks. Hello, teachers and students and everybody out there in cyberspace. This is Peter James Smith with letters after my name now. M.Ed means Masters of Education. Just gained that title in April 2019, just a few weeks ago. I majored in instructional leadership at St. Leo University, which I'll explain to you in a little bit. And I have a I don't know how that happened, but I just wanted to say, and I'll preface my thing with saying that no technology is perfect, and this one certainly is not. You see my whole desktop, good or bad, and sometimes weird things happen. Like if I get a text, it'll come across this side. Oh, see that, like a weird thing like that happened. A text will come across this side, or if I get a phone call, it starts making this loud noise, whatever. I just hope I'm doing this early in the morning so that nobody calls me. But it's not that big of a deal. We just work through it because we're teachers, and teachers work through it and deal with it. And that is an aspect of co-teaching. You have to, you can take a timeout, a teacher timeout, and you can fix what's wrong and then reevaluate and start over again. And that's what we do. But anyway, I have a WordPress blog known as Teacher in Cyberspace, which I'll show you. And today on this screencast, I'm talking about co-teaching models. Now, the co-teaching models are used all over the US and Canada and the world. And my website and my YouTube channel can be seen all over the world. And if you type into Google things like co-teaching models, eventually it's going to show up in Google, and I hope that people gain from it all over the world, because I like to share what I know. I'll explain why I like to share when I show you something else in a few minutes. But in particularly, I chose this co-teaching model to use for some teacher colleagues and friends of mine who are going to have to be using this in September. And they're local, but there also are many, many other teachers in the country that are going to be using co-teaching models. And I hope that some of what I explained today in my screencast will be of use to them, because I'd like everybody to see it. But the reason I make a video is because everyone will have the option to see it if they choose to. Now, like I was saying, in my personal situation, I'm a member of the Board of Education in my school, which is the Seaside Heights School District in New Jersey. And our school is Hugh J. Boyd School. And co-teaching models is something that the teachers of the school are going to have to know about. Now, because of different rules and regulations, blah, 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 I can't go down to the school and do an in-service or something like that. That's not acceptable. But Teacher in Cyberspace videos, if one of them happens to, one of the teachers down there happens to want to watch the video and hears about it and takes their time out to look at it, that's a different cup of tea. And the things that I do here are not anything, they're not necessarily affiliated with the opinion of the Board of Education. This is Peter Smith's ideas alone. But I'm only really a board member when I'm sitting in a quorum with others taking votes. But the rest of the time I'm a private individual. But because of my authority in the school and blah, 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 I can't go down there and give an in-service. That would be inappropriate. But if somebody comes across my video and wants to watch it and catches some of my ideas, then isn't that a better world? That's how I feel. And there's some of my friends and colleagues down there who would enjoy this. So this in particular one I'm making for them per se, not exclusively, but making it for them because I know they're going to be interested in it. Then there might be teachers in the county who are interested in it, and the state, and the country, and then the world. Because I am in cyberspace, and cyberspace goes all over the world. and I'll show you why I even picked that name. So anyway, like I said, when I hit the escape button, it's going to go to my desktop, which you'll see the desktop or whatever, and then I'll go to Chrome, and I'll show you how I have that set up. And because these screencasts are new to me, I only made one other screencast, and I'll show you that quickly. But I think they're an effective tool when they're put on the YouTube channel to get my information out to the masses. Like I said, not just Hugh J. Boyd, but the world. And I hope people like it because I have a lot of information. I'll explain. So I'm going to hit escape. It's going to show my desktop, which not really necessary. And it goes to here. Oh, this is the screen. This is a active channel of YouTube, and it says screencast 25 ways to incorporate technology into the classroom. This is a screencast I made the other day, the first one I ever made. And let me just click on it for fun, and you can see the first minute of it.
Here we go. Now, mind you, this is a screencast, and this is something I talked about in Jalene's discussion question, and it also might be something that would come in handy for some teachers that I know that I'm going to share with. But anyway, just for a disclaimer, if you look up...
Anyway, you can watch this if you want. Hold on a second. This is its direct URL link. That might be a little tough to remember, but of course that has to come up. If I hit plus and I go to YouTube and I quickly go to my channel, of course it's giving me every problem, but you can see that I have a channel on YouTube. I have 633 subscribers. I've been making YouTube channels videos since 2006 when YouTube first came out, and I'm a director. And I have special, at the time you could put on a movie of any length, and now I think they limit you to 10 minutes, but I'm grandfathered in. But whatever, name of my channel is Peter James Smith. How easy could it be? And it has all the different videos that I've taken over time, including that one. So all my videos are going to be on this channel because that's the way, the mechanism, how they're broadcast all over the world. And just to show you something, go to my videos, and I'm going to sort by most popular. And my most popular video I ever made was a Seaside Heights tourism video. It has 279,000 views. And then my Great Adventure Haunted Castle Fire documentary that I made in 2003 years ago that I never thought anybody in the world would see has 209,000 viewers. And this one here has 95K. This is a video that I made of the hurricane, and it just goes on and on and on. But I never know which videos are going to be popular. In my wildest dreams, I never thought that 200,000 people were going to watch my Haunted Castle Fire video. But anyway, just to reiterate what I was saying, the name of my channel, let me go back, is Peter James Smith. Wait, of course it's getting up. Yeah, here we go. And it has all the videos I've ever made, including ones of my dog down here. But they're not all about education, but you can find me. Okay, so let me go to the next one. So I showed you, all right. Oh, this is my WordPress blog that I'm going to be, I promised in my last I keep saying it wrong, screencast, that I would show you how to make a WordPress blog. And this is one that I made. And of course, it's called Teacher in Cyberspace at WordPress.com. And look at this handsome gentleman that I have my picture up there. Actually, I do not like that picture. I don't know why I picked it. It just was there. But anyway, I initially was doing, the more content you put on your blog, the more hits it's going to get, the more popular your blog is going to get. And like I said, I'm going to be doing a thing about blogging in the classroom in a separate screencast, but not today. But I made up this content in August. I made this thing and intended to put up stuff on it, but I had to learn what I really wanted to put on there, and I think screencasts work better than does these written things. But I wanted to share something. Oh, there's a video. I actually did make a video. It was me talking, but that's not really what I wanted to show you. I wanted to read you Here We Grow, Cultivating a Growth Mindset. It says, the research surrounding the fixed versus growth mindsets are the work of Carol Dweck of Stanford University, who has written many books on the topic. And it's one of the very first things, and in fact, it is the first thing I learned at St. Leo in my major. And I wanted to, first thing I tell my students and my teacher colleagues. In my teacher colleagues, I consider people like, again, local, state, federal, country, worldwide. But I want to share it with you. And this is how it works. Some people adopt a fixed mindset where they have a belief that their ability and intelligence is limited by genes and environmental factors, and it never changes. The opposite rationale is that there is a, oh, I made a mistake. Oops, it should be there. I'm going to have to fix that. That there is a growth mindset where failure is not seen as a bad thing. It's a learning process. One might not know about something today, but perhaps not yet. That phrase is common in the Dweck research. So everyone should have a growth mindset. I taught this year a few classes in the 4th grade at UJ Boyd. I got special permission from the board to do it, and I made a thing in the back of the room that said, Here We Grow. And I told the children every time I walked into that room that we have to adopt a growth mindset. And it's very interesting. So it goes something like this. A person could be naturally intelligent, but put little actual effort forth into a project and not achieve the goal. I spent the first half of my life doing that. Okay, but a less gifted person could put forth a great deal of effort and achieve the goal. Effort is the key to the growth mindset. This is something that we students and teachers have to remind ourselves. There's also research involved in praise, and I'll be blogging about that soon. Oh, that has nothing to do with what we're talking about. Anyway, scroll down. I actually, we'll get to that later. I offer all these services. But anyway, I wanted to show you where I titled the website was I Touch the Future, I Teach, Christa McAuliffe, Teacher in Space. I'm the teacher in cyberspace. But I believe in Christa McAuliffe's vision of what she does. In fact, when I did do my teaching this year at UJ Boyd in the 4th grade with Mrs. Denisio's class, I taught some of the lessons that Christa McAuliffe was supposed to teach on the Challenger from space. She was supposed to teach lessons, and they're called Christa's Lost Lessons. And I taught 1 or 2 of them. I think she had 7 lessons. But I was teaching about space, about the space program, and it was very well received. And I did these 2 experiments, and they were Christa's experiments, Mrs. McAuliffe. But I've always liked her, and one of the things that I have in common with her, or that I've adopted from her, is my love of social history. And that's what she taught. She was a social studies teacher from Concord, New Hampshire, and she was picked out of 11,000 people to be the teacher in space. And she competed against scientists and PhDs and this and that, and she kept wondering why they kept picking her further and further down the line, and then eventually did pick her. And the reason is that she had a common touch. She was an everyday teacher that could explain it to you, to other teachers and to students in a way they can understand. And I hope that I adopt those same policies. And another thing that Christa did that I like to do is keep a journal. And I suggest this for everybody, because people who are going to be watching this, like I said, are people in college, students in college that are studying education, might look me up and see this topic. And teachers and teacher leaders and administrators. All of you should be keeping a journal of your experiences. Buy a notebook, and write it down. Or make a folder in your computer and type it in. But keep a running journal of what you do and the things that are going on. You never know what that's going to look like. And I actually have a running journal going that I'm going to show you. But anyway, love Christa McAuliffe. Felt horrible when the Challenger exploded, but we can keep her memory alive I do anyway, through my teacher in cyberspace, which is coined, obviously, from the obvious here. So anyway, let me roll down a little bit here. I think, anyway. Okay, so that's just that for a second, and I'm going to go to a little tiny aside, and of course you're going to have to see some probably screen, go to pages, of course it has to bounce up, and this is not what I wanted, but file, open recent, and it's probably untitled, and I'm probably going to open up 12 untitled that I don't want. Oh, okay, no, it's not too bad, but this is what I want to show you, is that if you have to contact me and you have any questions, and I am open to answering questions, you can contact me at the following website, and it's Peter Peter James Smith 71 at yahoo.com. And of course, I have to change the font a little bit. I want to make this a little easier to read because it made 2 lines, which I hate, but I have to just make it a little bit smaller so it all goes on 1 line, so it makes a little more sense to you. And it's not a capital P, that's a autocorrect, which is the bane of my existence. But anyway, here we are, Peter James Smith 71 at yahoo.com. Note there are 2 S's. James ends with an S, Smith starts with an S. That's confusing to some people who use my email address, and I just wanted to point that out. But if you have any questions for me about this topic, about any topic to do with teacher leadership or instructional leadership or the co-teaching models, shoot me an email and I will respond back in the best I can, as fast as I can. But that is, how you can contact me. I would give my phone number out, but this is going out to the world, and I don't want everybody to have my phone number. It rings enough. But I might get a special phone number for this, but still I would have to, it would be something that took messages, not, something I would answer. But for my friends and colleagues who are local, who know me, send me an email with your, and I'll send you my phone number so we can talk and chat if that makes it easier. Teachers at the school, teachers I might know through the county, whoever. If you know me, you can send me your phone number. Even if you don't know me, you can send me your phone number, and depending on the question, I'll call you back, because sometimes it's easier to talk to people. But anyway, so there it is. Just wanted to throw that out there because I neglected to mention that in my other recording. Oh, talk about technology, integrating technology into the classroom, and things not being a perfect world, and also the space program, which we were just talking about. No technology in the world is perfect, and I showed you about integrating technology into the classroom, and the space shuttle is the most complicated machine ever built. Well, now it's been surpassed by the International Space Station, but at the time it was the most complicated machine ever built, and 5 that were built, of them, 2 were lost in catastrophic accidents. So no technology is perfect. So just if we have glitches or whatever in this thing, we just have to deal with it. You always have to be prepared when you use technology and have a backup. I learned that from, I think, Dr. Carver or Dr. Efsesky from St. Leo, one of them. Sometimes the classes blend together, but they are fine people that I worked with. So anyway, let me go back to Chrome, and I can go to the next thing. So I showed you my website. And here, I wanted to also explain quickly, this is the home page for St. Leo University, and I went to St. Leo College back in the 90s and graduated there with a bachelor's in English education. And that's where I got my start. And then in 1999, I went and got a graduate certificate, 18 credits, in special education from Georgian Court in Lakewood, New Jersey. And when I found myself later in life with some free time on my hands and wanting to get my master's, I went to Georgian Court, and they told me, no dice, it's too late, you didn't finish your other 18 credits back in the day, you'd have to start over again. So, and it was very costly there. So I said, let me just go to St. Leo because I know they have a beautiful worldwide online program and the most beautiful campus imaginable. It's so much different than when I went there. Long story short is that they gained a lot of money from their online program. They went from like 1,000 students to 15,000 students. It's a nonprofit organization, and they had to reinvest in their own uh, facility. And it is absolutely beautiful at St. Leo and big, and the education is top notch, and I love it there. But anyway, so I went to St. Leo, and they talked to me nicely because it's big enough to be close to you, small enough to be friendly. That was the motto of First National Bank of Toms River, where I used to work. But anyway, St. Leo, they were very friendly, and I explained to them my situation of being on the Board of Education and wanting to. I didn't know what I exactly wanted to do with it, but I wanted to get my master's and perhaps go back into teaching because I had been a teacher naturally, and or just know more about education so I could bring back things to my school, to the administrators especially, that they could use as resources, which I have done, and they have used some of my stuff that I've given them to make a difference in the school, because it's all about school change, and I'll explain that in a minute as I go through this little thing. But I wanted to explain a little bit about instructional leadership, which was my major, and instructional leadership is sort of a new-ish thing, and they call it colloquially the innovation. So when I say innovation, instructional leadership, I'm meaning the same thing. And there was a beautiful quote from Victoria, Canada. No, sorry, Victoria, Australia, about something about the innovation, and I forget the quote exactly. And of course, I went back to that website, which I had bookmarked, and it is broken. It's not there anymore. And that happens, and you'll see further in the screencast that it happens a lot. And I'll give you an example. But if you find something you like on the computer, I would suggest making a screenshot of it, printing it out, copying and pasting it into a Word document, because links break. And you think that that's there forever, and you'll go back and it's not there. There's a tip from Peter Smith to you to do that, because links break. And I wish I had that. I have it somewhere in my notes, but I wish I could share it right now. Something about the importance of the innovation, but whatever. So it says here, talks whatever. You can major in instructional leadership. It says this online program offers an innovative approach to teacher leadership based on the teacher leadership model standards. The national standards are intended to codify, promote, and support teacher leadership as a vehicle for transforming schools change to meet the needs of 21st century learners. Okay, so let me just go back through that a little bit. Down here are the domains, which I'll explain briefly, but they codify, meaning that they give a list and whatever to promote and support teacher leadership. And teacher leadership is teachers who, in one aspect, there's multiple facets of it, but teachers sometimes in teacher leadership will teach 3 periods a day and do administrative tasks 2 hours a day, like curriculum writing or academic coaching or something like that. And they are the leader. They have leadership skills in addition to teaching skills, and that is one avenue that you could take in this vast realm of instructional leadership. But it's a vehicle for transforming schools. The first thing I ever learned in school, and I'll show you that in a minute, is the first class I took was leadership for school change. Schools have to change to meet the innovations that we talk about and learned about in my instructional leadership major. And for instance, my district, our school, is changing to a collaborative teaching and data-driven assessment sort of way, and that's drastically different than what we used to do, but we have to change based on different factors that I won't get into. But change is hard. People don't like change. They resist change. But we have to change. But knowing a little bit about these domains and what teacher instructional leadership really is and teacher leadership is will help you understand that there is a need to change, not just here, but all over the country and the world and the universe. On Mars, where they watch this, they probably need to change their schools. Martian schools are watching this, I'm sure. Okay, well, anyway, transforming schools to meet the needs of 21st century learners. Now, this is very interesting because what we're doing, why we're changing, is for the students' benefit. It always boils down to the students. And I have always believed in the students. In fact, the reason I ran for the board in the first place is I was concerned over what kind of education the students of Seaside Heights were getting. And I wanted to have my say, and I felt I had a role to fulfill. And I've been there going on 18 years now. I am the most senior member of the board as far as time, and I'm the vice president again. I had been the president for 5 years, and our current president picked me to be his vice president. So once again, a little rise to power. But the power is I run the meeting when he's not there and get to sign documents in emergency situations. But anyway, so but 21st century relates back to technology because we're supposed to integrate 21st technology skills into our lessons, and I always do that. And that is what my first screencast was about. So you can go back and watch that, and there's 25 different ways to integrate technology into your classroom. So this is a one sentence that is loaded with different meanings, and I tried to break it down a little bit for you. And it says, here we go, rather than serve as a comprehensive job description for teacher leaders, the standards instead describe 7 domains of leadership. Each domain is further supported by a list of functions that teacher leaders who are work in that field would be experts in. So it's a little hard to read. I don't have my glasses on right now. I should find them. But it is, what that means is that there's 7 domains, and some people are experts in one of them or 2 of them. And I don't feel like I'm an expert in all 7, but I am very well versed in all of them because I made it my business to, because I never knew which one I was going to use. And as far as being a school leader, I had to and wanted to know them all. So a lot of them, some of them come a little more easy to me, some of them come a little bit harder, but I no expert in all of them is what I'm getting at. But a jack of all trades, master of some. Okay, but anyway, let's explain what the domains are quickly. Get through this as quick as we can. Domain 1 is fostering a collaborative culture to support educator development and student learning. That's also a loaded sentence. We work together, we collaborate, we foster a collaborative culture in schools. That's part of the change. And it supports educator development, your professional development that you get, and student learning. That's what it's all based back onto the student, everything. Because students are the most important thing. And of course, teachers are very important too. If you can read this, thank a teacher. Okay, it was Teacher Appreciation Week last week. Today is May 12th, 2019. Last week was Teacher Appreciation Week, and I appreciate all you teachers out there, and also you administrators, and even students going to school, because education is undervalued in this world. But anyway, Domain 2 is accessing and using research to improve practice and student learning. That is what I did in this screencast. I went and I accessed research, which are all these tabs up here, and the goal is to improve practice for co-teaching in this particular one for student learning, because we don't co-teach for ourselves. We're doing it to benefit the students. And if you do it right, and I'm going to show you examples of how to do it right, it can be very beneficial for a classroom to have 2 different teachers in it at once. And that's something that's coming to my school, and it's coming to other schools in the world. And I hope that people gain from some of the things that I am going to show you. Number 3 is promoting professional learning for continuous development. That is your professional development that you teachers take. There's good professional development and there's bad. And I'm sure you've been in bad situations where you couldn't wait till 4 o'clock till this ended, or good professional development that really taught you something. And I could be a professional development person. I have the qualifications. I just don't really, I'd rather just teach online here. It just makes more sense to me. It's something that uses technology, which I like, and something that I can do from home and whatever. But you are promoting professional learning for continuous improvement. Teachers always need to be improving their practice. They are lifelong learners. And that's just how the cookie crumbles. The next domain is facilitating improvements in instruction and student learning. Very similar to the other domain, but you have to always be researching different ways to improve instruction. And that includes, I'll talk about in a second, a class I took, which is called Beyond the Common Core. Like once this Common Core ends, because all of these things end eventually, we're going to have something else. And there's more instruction methods and different ways that you can look on the internet or in books and find different ways to improve your instruction. Or even more innovative people create their own ways of improving instruction in ways that are original that we've never even thought of. So you have to constantly be improving your instruction, and the goal of it is for student learning, once again. All right, and the next domain 5 is promoting the use of assessments and data for school and district improvement. This is very, very important for everybody to know, and in fact, assessment and data are going to be 2 different screencasts that I'm going to make in the near future because they're so involved. I couldn't talk about it. We'd be here for 3 hours, and I want to limit to myself to under an hour. If you can have a cup of coffee and a snack while you listen to me, that's fine. But to drone on for hours and hours, I don't want. I'm already chatty. I don't mean to be, but that's just my nature. I was most talkative in 8th grade and 12th grade. Voted. So anyway, assessments are how we evaluate student achievement, and most of the time, as you teachers and administrators out there will know, that the assessments are high-stake tests that are a bubble test, multiple choice, or true and false, which I think are poor indicators of student success. And there are factors in different schools that the test scores don't necessarily reflect exactly what's going on in the school. So you could use something that we talked about, and I'll talk about in my future screencast, called alternative or authentic assessment. Having the students do something or show you something to prove that they know the objective that you had as part of your lesson plan. So promoting the use of assessments and data is a word you should know. It's spelled D-A-T-A, and get used to it because that is the way of the future. But data can be anything that you collect that shows student progress. And there's 2 different kinds. There's quantitative and there's qualitative. Another thing I'll get into in another screencast. But the way you collect data will drive your instruction. Hard to explain right this minute. I might get into it a little bit more. But those are 2 things that will require their own screencast. Maybe even screencast 1, screencast 2. Because there's just so much that can be said. Like, I don't know how many co-teaching model screencasts I'm going to make. There might be a part 2. I only picked out a few websites today. I might find more that are more interesting and continue on to that. So these things just build on each other. They scaffold, which is a IL instructional leadership word that we talk about, buzzword. It scaffolds on each other. Okay, then this one is that a teacher leader, instructional leader, innovator should improve outreach and collaboration. So they should reach out and work with families and the community. Very, very important. And this deserves its own screencast, but it's something I thoroughly believe in. A friend of mine who works at Hugh J. Boyd is Mrs. Louise Pesci, and this is something we have in common that we believe in, to outreach to the community, work with the community, work with the families. And we've been slowly implementing things that endorse this. So Rome wasn't built in a day, but we've done a few things that are going to hopefully lead to other things. And that's just in Seaside Heights. But I will show you ways to do it in any city USA or any city Canada or wherever. Okay, and then the next one is advocating or being a voice for student learning again and the profession. So when I talk about these things, I'm advocating, because for the better term, brainwashed by St. Leo people to constantly talk about how to change, how to better improve student learning, and to advocate for the profession of teaching. And that is another one of the domains. All the classes I took, which I'll show you a list of them, have something to do with one of these domains. And I had to learn all of them, or I wouldn't have my M.Ed. I don't know if I mentioned this before, I got a 4.0 in my class, in my major, the whole major, an A in every class. And I was proud of that because of my growth mindset. I put a lot of effort into it, whereas other people did not. And I don't know what kind of grades they ended up getting, but I don't think they were all A's. But anyway, those down here, teachers in instructional leadership positions foster a culture of success that can reverberate across schools. So the goal is, if you have one teacher leader in your school who is versed in the innovation or instructional leadership, they're supposed to talk about it all day long, share resources with other teachers, make connections with other teachers, collaborate with them, even the unwilling. Figure out a way to make them willing. And it should reverberate across schools. And that's one of the things. And districts. Once again, I'm on the district policy making level, and I share things with my superintendent and my principal in my school in hopes that they will use them, or at least think about them and use them in some other way that's their own. But I share with them different research things that I have found in my time. Okay, and I try to reverberate that so it will promote school change, which is something that we have to do. Working with their colleagues, once again collaborating, teacher leaders can implement strategies that improve student learning. Once again, research shows that that collective leadership, working together, has a stronger influence on student achievement than individual leadership. So 2 heads are better than 1. And that's why this collaborative teaching and co-teaching models are so useful in student learning. And in our case, in Seaside, we're hoping to boost test scores. And when you see some of the videos and examples I'm going to show you, you will see how versatile it is and how these co-teaching models can be used in any way that the teacher chooses, or the 2 teachers chooses in their co-planning, that will benefit student learning. It's very interesting, and we're going to get to that. Teacher leader model standards seek to generate collective leadership by fostering professional discussion and best practices and advancing new roles for teachers to serve. And that's how the cookie crumbles. And I'm going to go down here a little bit. Why choose St. Leo? Why choose instructional leadership at St. Leo? Because St. Leo is the best. It's right up there next to Harvard, as far as I'm concerned. Well, that may or may not be true, but St. Leo offers a very valuable education. They always have. They are from the Benedictine that they were established by the Benedictine monks and nuns of Florida that came from Latrobe, Pennsylvania, and they were some of the most learned people of their time, and their whole thing is education. And the school was founded on these Benedictine values, and we have core values in the school, which are based, again, on Benedictine values. And I'll be talking about the core values here and there. One of them is community, which is I work towards the betterment of my community and the community of the world. But where was I? Sorry, like I said, not perfect. Sometimes I go off on a tangent, don't mean to. Hold on a second. Here, it's up here. So sorry. Why St. Leo was founded in 1889, accredited, blah blah blah, and it wants to produce master teachers and educational leaders. And there's a set of core values, like I said, at the corner of St. Leo University, and the mission is to offer a practical, effective model for life and leadership in a challenging world. And it's a Benedictine. And on the online instructors at St. Leo are current experts in school administration and regular presenters at national and international conferences. They are all fantastic. Every professor I went to wasn't some, teacher's assistant or something. They were a pro at what they were talking about, and you could tell. And they made us jump through hoops to understand this stuff through authentic assessment, which is one of the things that we're supposed to bring back to our schools to change. So, anyway, the horse or the cart didn't come before the horse. We learned about it. Okay, go down here. Oh, this is the last thing I'll show you on this page. What can you do with a degree in instructional leadership? You can be an instructional specialist, someone who improves the instruction for student learning. A curriculum specialist. I took a whole class in curriculum writing. I can write a curriculum, bang up. I know that the curriculum was recently in Seaside Heights revised by the teachers, and that I thought was wonderful. Because that's very important. But I know about Common Core and all these things, and I have all my books, and I have my curriculum book up in the bookshelf up here, and that's something that I could do, but I really don't. Professional Learning Communities Coach. A professional learning community is a group of people who come together to talk about an educational issue and to work on it. And guess what? Right now, watching this video between you and I, and how you can interact with me with email, we are a professional learning community online. And other way you could do it is, say you have your supervisor in your school who gives professional development, and he has an hour to describe this topic. He could make a screencast like I did, or a movie, or a website, or some type of technology that could be a extension of learning. So that's what I hopefully am achieving in my screencast. A teacher mentor, someone who trains other teachers to be better teachers. A school program leader, a director or supervisor, dean of students or faculty, district level administrator. These things, supervisor and administrator, require tests and things that I'm not interested in taking. That's not my goal. But one of the facets here is really interesting. It says that you can be a nonprofit and advocacy organization leader. And I never thought of that when I started into my program, but that's eventually what I'm probably going to do, because I'm on the board of trustees of the Historical Society of Seaside Heights, and we are building a museum and curating a museum. And I've been learning about that by researching about it. And if you are in this type of position, curating a museum has to have an educational aspect. A museum is an educational thing. So that's likely what I'm going to be using this information for, aside from my screencasts and things. Whatever. But I never thought about that one. It just happened. Higher education positions. That means I could teach in a college if I wanted to. But I don't know if I want to. We'll see about that. Or a corporate trainer. So those are the things that you can do. Okay, so anyway, I wanted to show you the classes that I had to take to gain the M.Ed. and just a little bit about them. The first one I took, and these are not necessarily in any order, but this happens to be the first one I took, is Leadership for School Change. So leaders in the school will promote school change, to change things to make for better student achievement. And that is what we talked about there. Academic coaching is the next class I took, incidentally, and it's next in this line. And that is about teachers helping teachers, working together. You have to work with the willing, first of all. If you have somebody who doesn't want to have another teacher explain anything to them or teach them new stuff, you can't teach an old dog new tricks. You can try to win that person over, but you may or may not be able to. But if my suggestion is, if you get resistance from teacher A, they won't listen to you, this, that, the other thing, no matter what you say, move on to teacher B, because maybe they'll listen. That's academic coaching. Leading the instructional cycle, one of the classes I had to do, which is in different methods of instruction, which is back to one of the domains. Facilitating student learning through high quality instruction. I learned all different ways to do high quality instruction, which I can't, that's another screencast. These are all other screencasts that you will likely see in the future, because I won't stop making them until I have perished, I think, because I believe in this so much. Teacher inquiry for school and student growth. This is exactly what I'm doing right now. I had to do inquiry, which is sort of a small action research project, to find the links that I would choose to share with you today. And it's for school and student growth. And that was a very interesting class that I took. Driving instructional change through data. That is the data-driven instruction. That is extremely important. Another screencast. This class I loved, which is Cultivating a Caring School Community. This is the outreach with community and families. And that's there is study after study after study that if you don't have the parents involved and if you don't have the community involved in your school, that you're doomed to fail. So nobody wants to fail. It's very important. Public school law is another class I took. Eye-opening for the different things that go on in a school. And one of the things I learned about is you can talk about Christmas. Some people don't think you could talk about Christmas in school anymore. It's like a war against Christmas. There's a list of things that you can do. You can put up a Christmas tree. That's secular. You can do. You can show religious items, in a teaching context. But the good teacher would show, maybe Christianity, Judaism, and Islam, or something like that, or talk about Kwanzaa too. Show everything so that you're not promoting one over the other. That's just one of the laws that I learned. And another thing, at least in New Jersey, and teachers worry about being sued a lot and needlessly, but in New Jersey we have sovereign immunity, and unless you do something egregious, which means flagrantly bad, and you would have to have willful misconduct. The student would have had to lost a limb, and like all these different things, where teachers and school districts are pretty much immune from being sued. If you could sue the school district for anything willy-nilly, we'd have no money. So the state has something called sovereign immunity, and they make it so difficult to sue schools that it's insane. Almost no one can do it unless, it's horrible. Like something happened that is horrible. Not just, I got hurt in gym, I want some money. It doesn't float that way. Okay, all right. Collaborating in the inclusive setting. This is what we're learning about. This is co-teaching, working together in an inclusive setting with students who range from IEP students to gifted and talented and everywhere in between in the same classroom, being taught by two different teachers. And usually it's a special education teacher and a regular education teacher together, but that's not always the case. I know situations where it is two regular education teachers working together, but still it does not matter. You could always collaborate elsewhere with a special education teacher if you really were having problems. But the most common thing is a special education teacher and a regular education teacher working together. And this that class showed us how to work together, and that's some of the things I'm going to show you. Curriculum development beyond the Common Core, I spoke about this. We were talking about things that are not just today, but tomorrow, what might happen. I did a seminar on multicultural education, eye-opening. Diversity is what makes the world go round. It opened my eyes to the diversity of my district, which is fair to say at least 50% English learners, ELLs, we call them, English language learners, children who came to the school in our circumstances only speaking Spanish, and we had to teach them English. We have to actually do more, and that's just an example in our school. But you have to be multicultural, where like there are schools somewhere elsewhere in New Jersey where the language is Arabic or Chinese, and that's just in New Jersey. There's so many variations, but you have to be multicultural aware, and that's key to any teacher leader. And then there was a class on value and ethics and educational leadership, was also interesting. But those are the classes I had to take to gain my M.Ed. And here, oh wait, you've been away, need to log in. That's because I did this last night. Oh, by the way, I was getting to it. I did this same speech last night, did not press record, and wasted like an hour of my time. But anyway, let me log into here. I want to show you something. This is, remember I said you have to keep a journal? Well, St. Leo has a list of all the courses I ever took. Everything is like in a time capsule. I can go back to course 1 and look at every assignment I did and every discussion question I did, read them, read the responses, see what resources I used. It makes it so wonderful. So this is sort of an online journal that's made for me automatically. But like I said, Christa McAuliffe said, keep a journal, because people in the future are going to want to know what you did. And anyway, but I wanted to just show you something for fun. This here, week 1, teacher leadership, was the first discussion question I ever had to do. And I wanted to roll down here, and oh wait, of course I went to the wrong area. You're supposed to go up to activities, sorry, and discussions. And I'm going to scroll down, and I'm going to read you the first paragraph of what I ever wrote in my first thing ever in graduate school. Oh wait, discussion question 1. And let me go down to Peter Smith. All right, here we go. Wave 4. It says, and I actually made a mistake in here. Leading without leaving is the premise of the book that we were reading. And what that means is you can be a teacher leader without leaving your classroom. You could still be a teacher. You could still have the roles of an administrator, like I said, academic coach or curriculum writer or many other things, while still being a teacher. Some people don't want to be a principal or an assistant principal or superintendent. They think that that's the natural order of things. Teacher leaders stay sometimes, most of the time, in the classroom because they want to be teachers. That is their goal in life. At the end of the day, I'm a regular classroom teacher. No matter what I do or what I gain, that is the way I think of myself. Just whatever. So anyway, it says here, leading without learning. Oh gosh, sorry. Sometimes I trip over my words because I talk fast. But anyway, leading without leaving is the premise of the book. In fact, it is the subtitle of the book. Leading without leaving is the goal of teacherpreneurship. One of the things that we learned about. I'll talk about that more later. But wave 4 would be the ideal, teaching part of the day and performing administrative tasks in the other part of the day. I think that the goal of teacherpreneurism is the golden ring of the profession, and I agree with it. To stay in the classroom while still being able to make important decisions that make a difference to the district, other peers, and the students is so important. They are given the choice to collaborate with other teachers to improve teaching. So funny that this would be the first thing I would write, and I would come to believe this in a very, very profound way. So anyway, I just wanted to show you that there is a list, a journal of everything I've ever done. So I can pull up resources that will help these screencasts that I did in school and hopefully help you out there in cyberspace. And this one, talks about what are the team teaching things. And I'm not going to read everything because that is not what I wanted to do. But here, this is one of the things I wanted to concentrate on. What makes a strong partnership? Because you have to have a strong partnership if you're going to be co-teaching with somebody. Even if you don't like each other, you have to have a strong partnership. And that happens. Strong co-teachers provide seamless instruction for their students. Both teachers must come to a mutual agreement that they are equals in the classroom, and students must perceive both teachers as invaluable members of the classroom community. So there's not a lead teacher and somebody else just there, although you can take that, one of the co-teaching models, or some of them actually have somebody in the lead and somebody in the like subordinate doing something else. But that role can switch within the hour. It's not like that for the whole school year. There's not a lead teacher. There is 2 teachers that are equal, and they are both the ones who planned this lesson and are implementing the lesson. And they are both invaluable. This can be particularly difficult for teachers who have taught alone for most years, and that is the case. Sometimes we don't realize how many decisions we make alone in our classroom on a daily basis. Making decisions as a team is a key way to a strong partnership, but it's an adjustment for veteran teachers. Very much an adjustment for some people to have to work with another person, but it's very important. I'll just go down a little bit. It says, strong co-teachers solve problems together. In fact, it is the best part of co-teaching. You're never in it alone. Like, for instance, there's 2 teachers in the room, and there's an emergency that arises, and you have to deal with it with the student. Well, guess what? There's another teacher to take over for you right there. There's no worrying, no calling the office for backup. That's just one thing. Here's benefits of co-teaching. Having 2 minds facilitates a classroom community that allows students to connect with different personalities. Co-teaching allows more opportunities for small group and one-on-one learning and stronger modeling during lessons. The co-planning process encourages 2 teachers to bounce ideas off each other in order to deliver the strongest, most creative lessons. I always enjoyed using my partnerships to model behavior and positive peer-to-peer interaction for students. When the students see the teachers working together, they start to learn to work together, and working together is something that they should learn to do from a young age, because you're going to have to learn to work together in the future. Collaboration is the way of the world nowadays. Anyway, it's nice to have another adult in the classroom, and it's a good community. Here's some challenges, quick, that I'll go. It has its benefits and has its challenges, but be sure to understand them. One of them, it's difficult to work with someone whose teaching style is different from yours, but you have to blend them through your co-planning period, which every co-teaching teacher should have. And if you don't have one, advocate for one. Tell your principal, we need co-planning time built into our schedule. Success is less dependent on similar philosophies and more dependent on an open mind and willingness to compromise. If you're in a co-teaching partnership with someone who views learning and teaching differently, make sure to talk about it. Have an open line of communication. Look at it as it's your chance to widen the scope of your practice by incorporating your multiple styles as into one. And this next one I talked about is another common challenge in regards to the inequality it often forms in a classroom. Sometimes, like, the special ed teacher who might be in the classroom feels like a guest in the classroom. Not true. They're equals. They're supposed to be working together, planning together, implementing together. And that's something that you have to work on right away. Understand your equals, co-plan, co-teach. Here is the 5 tips to becoming a strong co-teacher. It's the last part of this little page. And you should have the mantra that all students are our students. It's not that the kids with IEPs are Mrs. Jones' problem and the other regular education students are Mrs. Smith's problem. Not the case. All students are every teacher's problem. I ran into this problem when I worked at a school years ago as an inclusion teacher. They thought I was the guest, acted like that, and I had to kindly tell them that in real inclusion, there is no such thing, but whatever. So I've learned that. Come to planning meetings prepared with an agenda to maximize co-planning time. You only get so much co-planning time. Bring your resources with you. Plan ahead a little bit. It says, once again, if you feel something, say something. Open communication is key. Realize the success of your class depends on the strength of your co-teaching relationship. Even if Mrs. Smith and Mrs. Jones hate each other's guts outside of school, it does not make a difference in their co-teaching models. They're in it for the children and how it can benefit the children, and they have to co-plan and co-teach. And this is another one. You have to use a variety of the co-teaching models to maintain quality. Now, there are sometimes listed as 6, sometimes listed as 7, and you might even out there in cyberspace make an 8th one that we never even thought of, another way to co-teach in your innovation. But the way they can be used is very versatile. You could be doing one way, hour 1, and then a different way, hour 2, or even in hour 1, you could be doing one co-teaching model for the first 15 minutes and then switch off to another one for the next 15 minutes. Teachers can do anything that they want with these models, assign the children any way they want, divide them. There's so many different aspects of it, and you're only limited by your imagination and the amount of planning that you do. And it says here, inclusion is not a place, but instead a process. Okay, so anyway, that's what our goal is inclusion. It's law, and students should learn in the least restrictive environment, and that's generally speaking the classroom that they would ordinarily go to, being a child in the city, and this is the school that you go to, and whatever. But inclusion means everyone's included. Okay, so let me go up. Okay, here, this one here, and there's a zillion websites you can look at, but let me roll up. It's actually up here. I'm sorry. These are the co-teaching models that I'll just briefly explain, and then there's a little video to watch with a nice lady who speaks about them in a little more depth. But here's the basic names of them, the nomenclature, and maybe a little bit about what they do. In these co-teaching models, which is the whole goal of this, is the first one is one teaches, one observes. So one teacher is up front teaching, the other one is going around collecting data. What student's having trouble? Who's having a behavior issue? What are they not getting? Blah, blah, blah. And then that's data, and then in your planning time, you share that. That is the one teach, one observe model. One teach, one drift. One's instructing, and the other one is providing additional support to students who need it. Not just the IEP kids, but to everybody. The other teachers walking around and seeing where students are having difficulty understanding, and they're quietly, so they don't interrupt the main teacher's talk, help the other student. That's another co-teaching model. Station teaching is where you have like 3 tables set up with a learning objective at each one, and you have a different teacher at each one, and the students sort of rotate around. We'll get to that one in the little video. Parallel teaching, you divide the class into 2 groups and you teach the same content simultaneously, and it allows more supervision and more opportunities for interaction between the students. Alternate teaching, one teacher handles a larger group while the other one teaches a small group who needs specialized attention and additional supports. And this one is where the data-driven instruction comes into, because like for instance, you to take an assessment, I don't like to say test, but you can have an assessment and you realize that on number 7 that Johnny and Judy and Paulie didn't do well on number 7, so let's pull them aside and reteach that in a small group while the other teacher is moving on. And that's alternative. And then there's team teaching, which is the most difficult, but that is both teachers up front doing the same thing at the same time together, bouncing off of each other. And that's very complicated to do, but it probably works the best. So anyway, the next thing here, that's just a little introduction to it. But there is a nice lady, here, let me roll back here, who speaks very well, and she explains them, and it's about 8 minutes, but it's worth it. So just watch this nice video, and I'll be commenting if I have to.
Hello, my name is Tanya Brewer, a consultant with the Indiana IEP Resource Center. Welcome to the Essential Elements video on co-teaching. The objective of this video is to define the 6 different models used in co-teaching. The video will provide a working definition for each model with its corresponding pros and cons, as well as examples of effective uses. Let's begin with the basics of model usage. Models are most effective when matched with appropriate concepts or skills. Work collaboratively with your co-teacher to determine which models work best for you, your students, and the content being delivered. It is important to flow in and out of the approaches within a single lesson. Rarely should teachers use only one approach. The first model we will explore is One Teach, One Observe. In this model, one teacher has a lead role in instructing the class, while the second teacher is observing students. The second teacher can be observing a variety of behaviors, both academic and functional. This approach provides the opportunity to take data on students while instruction is occurring. The challenge with this model is defining the metrics to be measured to acquire the most meaningful data. Some of the possible uses for the One Teach, One Observe model are: collect data on student-specific IEP goals, collecting behavioral data, collecting participation data, or collecting mastery data. The second model we will be exploring is One Teach, One Assist. While similar in name to the previous approach, in this model, one teacher has the lead role in instructing the class, while the second teacher is assisting students. This assistance could be in the form of managing behaviors, answering questions, or modeling desired classroom functions. One Teach, One Assist allows instruction to go on while the second teacher provides individual or classroom supports. This model allows one teacher to provide necessary support to students during whole group instruction. However, be sure that the support provided does not cause the students to miss key concepts from the lead teacher. Another challenge of this model, if overused, is underutilizing the second teacher. The expertise and skills of both teachers should be fully utilized throughout each lesson. Roles should change based on the knowledge and strengths of each teacher. The possible uses for the One Teach, One Assist model are: answering questions, cueing for student initiation, modeling the completion of guided notes while the teacher instructs, or managing student behaviors. The third model is parallel teaching. In this approach, the students are divided into 2 groups. This allows each teacher to work with a smaller group of students. The key to parallel teaching is that the same content is being taught to both groups of students. Teachers have the option to cover the content in the same way or in different ways. This approach allows for many opportunities. Students can be assigned to groups to maximize participation and minimize behavior problems. It reduces teacher-student ratio, increases instructional intensity, and increases opportunities for each student to respond. 2 challenges with this approach are: teachers must be able to provide equivalent instruction, and the pacing of the instruction must be similar. This approach could be used to introduce a concept or skill where intense instruction is needed for mastery. Grouping can be done based on student learning styles or student data. The fourth approach is called alternative teaching. Alternative teaching occurs when the class is divided into 2 groups. Group size may vary. Each teacher leads a group, with the focus on a specific skill relative to the class lesson. The teachers do not have to teach exactly the same skill, but typically the skill being taught is related to the same learning objective. For example, Teacher 1 extends the lesson, whereas Teacher 2 may reteach parts of that same lesson. Using this approach, teachers can identify or group students in order to customize learning. This provides instructional flexibility and can provide intensive small group instruction. The makeup of the groups should be flexible and based on specific skills within a lesson. Be sure that the groups do not become stagnant to prevent reinforcing a pull-out model. The possible uses for this approach are to reteach, pre-teach, or extend learning. This approach could also be used with longer assignments or activities, such as projects or labs, to preview expectations for each section. The fifth model of co-teaching is called team teaching. Team teaching is defined as both instructors being fully engaged in the delivery of instruction. An example would be one teacher writes notes while the other teacher speaks, or one teacher may be explaining a concept while the other teacher models the concept. In most cases, the instructors take turns leading instruction. This approach can be very invigorating for teachers. Teachers have the opportunity to blend their teaching styles and instructional strategies, improving student engagement and enhancing the learning process. In order for this approach to be most effective, both co-teachers must be able to comfortably complement each other, not lose focus on the content or the flow, and actively provide opportunities for students to respond. Be aware that while this approach can engage students, it may be difficult for some students to track two adults talking and determine which one to attend to. A possible use for this approach is when teaching a skill that has multiple methods. For example, solving a linear equation, or when teaching specific genres of literature. The sixth and final model is station teaching. Station teaching occurs when the class is divided into 3 or more small groups, where teachers can provide intense direct instruction, facilitate enrichment, or monitor students working independently. The stations have tasks associated with a specific topic for one lesson, or a series of topics associated with a unit. An opportunity of this approach is that students can be assigned to groups to meet various instructional goals, and teachers can more closely watch student learning. Students can also be grouped to proactively address behavior concerns or provide specific supports. The challenges of this approach are the activities must function independent of each other, since all students will not do the tasks in the same order. Other elements to be aware of are managing noise levels and time management. The possible uses for this approach are to review skills and concepts, develop and encourage group work, and support peer collaboration. Now that you have been introduced to the 6 co-teaching approaches, I challenge you to work as a team and determine how to best utilize these models within your teaching. If you have questions about this information or any other...
If you have questions, email me. She wants you to email her, but whatever. You can watch that video if you want to rewatch it, but this is its link up here. But anyway, this is, and I explained to the people out there in cyberspace, is something that I would make a copy of, print this out, make a copy and paste into a Word document, scan it, do whatever you can to keep this information, because it's very good. But it's something that we learned as a resource in my studies, and now that I go to it, I see that it's falling apart. Some of the links are broken, some of the videos are gone. But I think that this is how you get to it is this. It is, and this is going, I think it's going to highlight the whole thing, but this is the URL up here if you want to write that down. But it is you can get to it by going to collaborativeteaching.weebly.com. Weebly is Weebly. So collaborativeteaching.weebly.com. And when you get there, you choose co-teaching models. And it comes down to this. And I specifically like this one because it gives a good explanation of all the different types of co-teaching models. And if you notice, some of them they call them different things, but there's about 6 or 7 of them that are used. And sometimes they're called different things, but they're essentially the same thing. But I really like this, and I'll tell you why. Because, all right, for instance, and I'll go through this as quickly as I can, because I would like, the ideal would be that the person out in cyberspace would go to this website, copy and paste it, or print it out so you have a copy of it. And it shows how it works, the advantages and disadvantages. And I like that. So anyway, in Model A, one group, one lead teacher, blah, blah, blah. It says the lead teacher teaches a concept. The support teacher has a purpose. The purpose can be behavior management, student engagement, behavior tracking, student assessment, or whatever. The support teacher is not just there. I've seen situations in my teaching experience where there was 2 teachers in one classroom and one just sat there like a lump. Bad idea. Both teachers have planned together and are implementing together, and there has to be a purpose for both of them. Assessment can be done by lead teacher, support teacher, or both. The purpose and lead role can change within a single lesson, and that's what I said. You could change not just the purpose and the lead teacher in a lesson, you could change between models in one lesson, how you're setting it up. So it has extreme versatility. But anyway, so here's advantages. When it's done right, each teacher has a specific role. There are different skills being taught. Everyone in the class has access to the same curriculum, and interventions are integrated. The teacher is not just attached to one specific student. There is no stigma attached to the child. I think I talked about this earlier. It's not Mrs. Jones' responsibility to hoover over the IEP children because she's the special ed teacher, because you're not really supposed to let the other kids know who has the IEP. I've seen good, bad, and indifferent in this thing, including where the special education teacher would be like, okay, Johnny, Judy, Paulie, and Jason, come with me, we're going to the library, and more or less might have said, you all have IEPs and special ed students, and you have to get taught differently. Not supposed to do that. Okay, there's a shared language and experience which makes future collaboration easier. You have the opportunity to learn more about individual students. Teachers and students have greater ownership of their achievements. And then it shows some disadvantages. When it's done wrong, one teacher isn't doing much at all. The example of the lump, as I call it. Teachers may not know how to properly collaborate and just show up without a purpose. This can be avoided by the co-planning process. Learning about, researching and gaining as much information as you can about co-teaching models and collaborative teaching, which I hope this screencast does, at least get you a start, because I'll probably make another one, because I'm probably going to find more information, like I said. But you might not know how to collaborate and just show up. You can't have that. You have to co-plan, co-teach. Can't say that enough. It could be distracting for other students and the lead teacher to have the other teacher floating around and helping, all the children with what, the needs they have in real time. If so, the secondary teacher for in this model would have to be quiet when they were doing it, and lean down and say, "Oh, hey Johnny, I think you're having a problem with this. Let's work on it." Not disrupt. So that's one thing. And also, and this goes into the same thing. There's a misconception about who is the lead teacher. Is it the classroom teacher or the special ed teacher? Which is, in most cases, that's how it's set up, but not in all. But both teachers are equal. And sometimes there's a lack of trust. If you don't know your co-teacher and you don't work with them a lot, or you're going to have to eventually work with them all year in a lot of situations, there could be a lack of trust. So whatever. So anyway, I just went through one, but you can go down and read all of the descriptions of them and their pros and cons, and feel free to know that you're not limited to just E. You could do A, B, in the same lesson, in the same hour if you want. It just depends on how you plan. And then what I specifically like about this website here is that it shows you a visual representation of how the classroom would look. Like this would be the teacher, where the teachers are. This is where the students, how the desk would be set up in one way, and it just goes on and on and on. This is station teaching. Obviously, there's 3 desks, 3 stations. Alternative teaching, lots of children in the one area and a smaller group over here. So I just like this graphic organizer, and I think that you should look at it, read it some more, copy it, and keep it in your bag of tricks. Okay, now the next thing that we're going to move on to is I found 2 videos. These are the last things we're going to talk about, and they're shorter than the other video that we watched, but they show effective real-time teachers working together, and I think that by showing this example, it's like an authentic way to show you more than just me talking about it or reading some documents. So you can actually see real teachers doing it at the same time. So this is the first one, and they are from the teaching channel. And okay, so let me just go into this one here.
Start with Amira, okay. And then maybe somebody who did it similarly could add on.
Kids know in our school that teacher timeouts and huddles are things that happen, and they know how to kind of continue working or transition themselves on while teachers decide how to be their best selves next. Teacher timeouts are something that teachers often use when they're collaborating with each other or co-teaching side by side to say, let's stop, have you thought about asking this question? Or why don't you put it this way? Or I was wondering if we tried this. And a huddle would be where 2 teachers or a group of teachers might come back and look at student work or discuss next steps.
I'm thinking that we'll just answer the 2 questions that the children identified. I think it's good that kids see that teachers are learners as well. And I think it's good that they see the work that we're doing as messy and imperfect, and that we're all revising our thinking and learning as we go. So I think it keeps things dynamic.
Miss Ellen is here today, and we are going to do some mathematical thinking. On the days that she's here, she and I co-teach together and really work off of each other.
So actually, these 2 are interesting because they're trying to figure out. They're jumping back to the 26. He's subtracting the 26.
Right.
Collaboration here really helps us, I think, do our best work in the moment because there's someone to think with and talk with and bounce ideas off of. Today it happened when we wanted to look at some kids' work and decide which strategies we wanted to present to the whole group.
Let's start with Tashawn.
Okay.
And then let's go to Luis. When Ellen's in the room, we'll often take teacher timeouts and talk with each other about what we think is where we want to go next. What's the next move we want to make? Is there a strategy that we want to highlight that we missed? Do we want to take some time to analyze the difference of those?
That's what I was wondering about, making the connections between maybe even Luis's way and Aaron's way.
Yeah, okay. So I noticed something, and I'm wondering if you guys noticed it as well. What do you see that is the same, and what did you see that is different between Aaron's way and Luis's way? Can you just take a moment to just look at that?
Ms. Lomax is here on the carpet with us because she's here to help us really think about some of the strategies we've all used.
We could go outside of the classroom after the lesson is all over and say, gosh, I wish we had tried this. But that moment's over and gone. So if we can do it in the moment, we have a chance to change the course of the lesson.
What did you see kids doing?
I saw almost every group doing a drawing of some kind, making sure they had 6 and 9 and adding them all together. I also noticed that at least 3 groups got hung up on their estimate, and even though they had a correct drawing or a correct model, they didn't want to move on from that number.
Yeah, so that was a new idea we kind of tried today, estimating. So maybe that would be good to address.
During the huddle today, we were talking about the student work and all of the different strategies and modeling strategies we had seen from the kids. And we were talking about what specifically we wanted to highlight during the share out so that we didn't have disjointed perspectives from the kids, but really took those few minutes of precious learning time to really highlight a strategy and some thinking that we wanted the other kids to hear.
So maybe we can use one of the models where the kids drew 6 and they drew 9 and they counted all together. And then after we've kind of established that, come back to some of the ones. Some of us today thought that it was 11 because that was our really good guess.
It's okay if our first guess isn't the accurate answer.
Yeah, but estimating helps us keep track of that situation and like what would be reasonable. As teachers, we always make a really good plan ahead of time, but things change in the moment when we see what kids actually do. So being able to huddle is like recreating that plan. Now that we have more information from our students, what do we want to focus this conversation on?
Did any of you, like Amira, get stuck on your first good idea, your first good guess?
Yeah. People have to be open to collaborating with each other. When we do, we're more creative, we're more responsive to the children in the room.
It helps simply because if I just kept going without doing a sidebar, the share out wouldn't be as rich.
It's very helpful to me as the classroom teacher because it's 2 heads are better than 1.
Is there anything else we want to add about Amira's strategy, Ms. Loma?
Well, I was just noticing that that's one thing that mathematicians do is they make really good guesses sometimes, and sometimes they revise their thinking based on what they see. So that's exactly what Amira did today.
That's a great thing to do in math.
Thank you, University of Washington. Okay, that's who made this video, I think, and whoever. And Lake Ridge Middle Elementary and the teachers. Okay, the next one is interesting too, and it's the last one. And it is 2 teachers who are working together interdisciplinary. In this particular circumstance, not only does it show positive co-teaching ways to work together, which is our goal, but it shows how you could say one teacher is good at one subject and one is versed in another. You can use your skills back and forth to complement each other. In this case, I think I might have said it's a social studies teacher and a science teacher teaching in the same co-teaching area with the same students, trying to teach them a concept. And they do it through a social studies approach and a science approach. It's very interesting. And once again, it is the last of the video and the screen cast. Hang on.
Good morning, everybody. We're going to start out with some teamwork time.
As you come up with websites, just take a moment and share those with us to make sure that that's going to give you information that's relevant for the project.
After that, you're going to create a research plan. Leah and I co-teach. I'm the social studies part of the brain, and Leah's the science part of the brain.
We're accountable to one another.
The reality is we both know these subjects pretty well. Just remember to post all your work in your team Google folder, and just so everyone has access to it.
Can I add a couple points, Mr. Morrell?
Sure.
When you did your benchmark 1 and you identified the cause and effects for each of the environmental and social issues, that information remains relevant. One thing that really excites me about co-teaching is that, we find that the real world is not siloed into disciplines. So you take a problem like climate change, can you call that a scientific problem? Do you call that a social or political or economic problem? The answer is all of the above.
So now it's just a matter of putting deadlines to those benchmarks.
While co-teaching isn't always the easiest thing to do, it really models for the students the way we need to tackle problems in the real world. And so we have to make sure we understand each other's language. So what's the first step in your teamwork time?
Choose deadlines for all the benchmarks.
Good. And I think we had one conversation earlier in the year about what a theory is. A theory in social studies and a theory in science are totally different. For me, a theory is law. Having those cross-disciplinary conversations, I think, really enriches what we're able to offer the students. It's simplistic, but 2 minds are really better than one. Mr. Morrell and I will each be working with half of the teams. One strategy we use that's helpful for the students is to take the teams, we have usually between 8 and 10 teams, and divide them between the 2 of us. And during that formative assessment period, we're going around meeting with the students. They know who their key mentor is.
What do you know about that currently?
About our topic.
About, right, how to answer that bullet point related to your topic.
I would look up another source because this tells you about its existence but not its impact.
Okay. Say what it is.
Yep.
Give an example.
Yep.
We tend to keep tabs on and have more of a detailed analysis of what that particular team is doing just because it's smaller in number. Tomorrow when you have your meeting, that's one thing you'll be looking for accountability is making sure that everyone had that posted and complete. In terms of their content, one of the most helpful ways I found to formatively assess what they're doing is to get right on that Google Doc with them. Planning is key. I mean, we meet 2 to 3 times a week for common planning time. I think that real-time formative assessment is key. And if they don't get that feedback right away, they're walking down the wrong road.
Right.
During that time, we create our agendas for the class, and we decide who's the lead for different activities and who's the support. And why don't I take the lead on helping them develop the need to know?
Okay.
And do you want to take the lead on
Developing the workshop?
the workshop?
Absolutely.
Okay.
It's balanced.
Exactly.
Honestly, I think it comes down to a few basic things, and that's respect and openness.
Mm-hmm.
And I think
And communication.
And communication. Encourage the kids to show their passion. What is convincing versus not convincing look like?
I think that just having another brain there to say, well, why? Why do you want to choose that article and not this article slows you down enough to apply your full intelligence to your profession. And that's a content no needs to know. So I would look at what you've already done for your benchmark 1 on your topic, put all that information as no, and then figure out what your gaps are in your research. And I can help you with websites.
What could be a cause for environmental racism? What are the effects of it? Excellent.
One thing I appreciate about this faculty is that, we're all expected to be flexible and innovate. And so if Tom has an idea, and I don't necessarily think it's a great idea, my job is to be willing to give that a try. I'm not so excited about the politicians. I might suggest modifications, but we have an experimental mindset. Maybe, we can build in some scaffolding around modeling.
The other day I was saying that Leah was trying to convince me of something. I said, Leah, I just don't get it. Convince me. And
Did I convince you?
on that point, I don't remember. I don't know if we resolved that one.
I think it'll remain a challenge for them to come up with something strategic and doable within the time frame.
The biggest role we take is helping coach them, make sure it is manageable.
Great. We try things, we learn, we modify, and so that sort of spirit of inquiry, having that between us has been helpful too.
Part of the reason why it appears we're on the same page is because we've gotten to this point through that process.
Hang on, folks. Okay, here we're back to this. My name and my teacher in cyberspace and my email if you have any questions. But the last video we saw I thought was very interesting. If you notice, they were heavily using technology in the classroom. One of the things that I'm going to eventually get to is 21st century. Well, actually, I did get to it. If you watch my other video that was published the other day, 25 ways to incorporate a technology, these teachers are doing that. And in Seaside High School, for example, in UJ Boyd, there's a laptop, a Chromebook, or a tablet for every student to use in the class. We're very lucky. And we also have the projectors in the classrooms and all these things that can be used. And the teachers do use them, but they could be used more. You can use them more. And also another thing that they said, which is another topic of another screencast, is they said something about a formative assessment. In the innovation, there's formative and summative assessments. Like ordinarily, like when I first started to be a teacher, it was teach unit, give multiple choice or true false test, move on. What is more likely to get you better results is to do a formative assessment every day or part during the lesson. A formative assessment means that you are seeing what they're getting or not getting in real time, what you have to reteach, blah, blah, blah. That is a totally different topic for another screencast, but I just wanted to point that out. And a summative assessment is the end of the unit assessment, and generally speaking, that should be an authentic assessment, another screencast. Thank you very much. But just remember, you can always email me questions. I am available to answer them back when I can. I will try to answer them back. I'm a busy person, but not that busy. And I hope that this is helpful to not just my teachers here locally, but to the state and the county and to the country and the world. Because I was taught to share the innovation with everybody. And always remember that I am not the end-all, know-all of everything. And you should really, I might give suggestions and things and good ideas that are valid, but always listen to your administrators in your school and the people who are your bosses, how they want it to be done, and perhaps suggest some of the things I do, or maybe they will suggest the same things I do. But I just want there to be this information out there in a way that I understand it and share. Now, it's a possibility, like I said, I might have more co-teaching model, maybe a part 2, if I find more and better information once I go through my notes, but I don't know, but I'm not really sure. But definitely in the very soon future, there's going to be a screencast on assessment, which is very important, and data-driven instruction, also very important. All the things are important. And if it takes me 200 screencasts, I'll make 200 screencasts so that everyone can understand everything. So, because not a lot of people can afford to go to school or have the time to go to school to get a thing in instructional leadership. I want them to learn. So anyway, thank you very much. It's been wonderful working with you and talking to you, and I hope that you enjoyed it and that it's beneficial to you. Thank you.